Hello, hello. Yay. Okay, we're live. Good, good. Oh my goodness. So I wanted to say I'm really thrilled and grateful for the opportunity to be sharing this transmission on courage and confidence today. It's one of my favorites. And so let me just do a quick introduction and then I'll jump into it. So I'm Chrissy Marie. I am an inner child alchemist. I love supporting women primarily in doing reparenting work. Ooh, I've got Tanya! Hello! So yeah, what brings me joy, what makes me come alive is helping people connect to their inner child, to ignite their sense of wonder, curiosity, creativity, playfulness, and sense of aliveness. So a lot of the work that I do is based on helping people nurture and sustain their life force energy. And I do lots of different things. I do transformational breath work. I do deep energy healing. I do somatic work. I run a sisterhood. I have courses and groups and a podcast. I do a lot of things. And I love doing all of them. All of it brings me joy and makes me feel really alive. So I'm excited to share this today when the question was posed on what could I chat about for quite some time. It was courage, and so I really could chat about courage for quite some time. So being concise is something I'm working on, and but we're gonna do it today. We're gonna make it, keep it simple system. So for those of you who are jumping in on the replay or who are here, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm in Rhode Island, which is the east. It's not New York. It's its own state on the East Coast, USA. We have snow today, which is exciting. It's the first snowfall of the day. I'd love to know where you're from. I'd love to know specifically in the arena of courage, where you feel like you could, like what area of your life do you feel like you could use a little bit more courage in, whether it's in relationship, business, friends, whatever, self-expression, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself, singing, dancing, all of those things. I'd love to hear. Cape Town, South Africa, amazing, beautiful. Yeah, so I'd love to know where you feel like you could use a little bit more courage, and also what you're noticing in your body right now. So, and I'll share too, what I'm noticing in my body is my heart's racing, it's moving a bit faster. I always get like excited jitters anytime I go live and also have to be concise. And as soon as I say that, like I notice my energy starting to settle a little bit. Just naming that supports me in finding my center, kind of finding the I in the midst of the energy that's swirling. Whew. And I'm noticing that I apparently desire to take a bit of a deeper breath. So I'm going to let myself do that right now. And I invite you to do that on your end, just getting curious about what your body needs right now and offering that to your body, whether it's a stretch or a sound. Hello, hello. I'm trying to scroll up through the comments and see. Hi, Sam. Okay, beautiful. So while you're doing that, I'll just share why this is a really important transmission for me. About 2 years ago, I was a social worker. I was doing a lot of enhanced outpatient therapy. I was mostly working with moms, helping kids who struggled with aggression, suicidality, you know, a lot of violence, a lot of disconnection in the home. They were at risk of going to the hospital. And I was working with these moms, and I was helping them deepen their sense of connection to themselves and to their kids so that they could keep the home copacetic. And I loved doing that work. Loved doing that work. Then I started getting all these nudges that I had a really powerful transmission. A lot of the more somatic embodiment work I was doing wasn't necessarily welcome in the context that I was working at, the agency that I was working at. So I started getting these nudges to work for myself, start calling in women that really wanted to go deep and do some of this deeper, more sensational work that I love to do. And that required me to go on social media more and show up and talk about what I do and share my process. And I am right on the line of introvert, extrovert, but I tend more towards introvert. Public speaking is not something that came really naturally to me. Like I said, I still get that, that jittery, excited, activated feeling anytime I show up in a group in front of other people where I know that I'm being watched and observed. So I knew that courage was something I needed to nurture if I was going to continue devoting myself to my soul song, devoting myself to the magic that was on my heart and showing up with my medicine, showing up with my self-expression. Because I really craved that deep down. I really wanted to refine that muscle of courage. Sam says, me too. Amazing. So, and just a little bit more context, a lot of my programming centered around perfectionism, performing for love. I read people's energy and nonverbals very quickly, so I'm constantly picking up on like subtle energetics. And so what I learned as a child is that like keep everything copacetic, appease people. I knew how to engage with people in a way that would make them comfortable, and a lot of my sense of value came from being the one in the room that could be grounded and keep everybody feeling safe and comfortable. And some of that came from my own trauma too, right? It was a survival thing. But it doesn't necessarily work really well when I'm trying to practice courage. For the sake, I'll give you some context on courage in a moment and you'll see why, right? But that was kind of the programming that I was bringing to the table, is that, I really want to self-express, but I had to be willing to make other people uncomfortable. I had to be willing to experience discomfort myself. And so when we run programs of perfectionism and performing for love and overanalysis paralysis, it can be really difficult to nurture the muscle of courage. So I want to give you 3 to 4 quick and dirty little like nuggets that have been pivotal for me in nurturing my nervous system, developing a belief that I'm capable of courage, and sustaining that and continuing to step into high sensation more and more and more so that I can embrace more of my wholeness, share more of my magic, experience more intimacy with people, because intimacy takes courage. So let me get into the context and the definition of courage so that it makes sense for you, just to kind of give you like a little foundation of where I'm headed. So courage, what I found was super interesting, and if any of you have ever watched Brene Brown's, I think she says this on her TED Talk, that she mentions that the Latin root of the word courage, cor, I don't know how you pronounce it, means heart. And so courage often earlier on meant to tell all of one's heart, to open the heart space. And I feel like that's really important in the transmission I bring, because my personalized definition of courage is the willingness to take action while feeling fear and discomfort for the sake of something that is in alignment with your heart, with your values, with a higher vibration, a higher frequency. And sometimes that action looks, it's overt, right? Like it's hitting live and it's sharing your story. It's calling a friend and saying, hey, do you have time and space to hold space for me? It's asking for a raise if you work for somebody else. It's an overt action. But oftentimes in our daily life, and we don't even realize this, courage is the willingness to stay present in high sensation for the sake of experiencing and embracing more and more of your wholeness. And so courage doesn't need to look like these big overt actions. Often just being present, taking a deep breath, and slowing down is an act of courage. You know, courage is this cocktail of fear and discomfort, the willingness to feel that fear and discomfort, and then powerful tools that allow you and help you alchemize that fear, raise it into life force, right? So that you can live with more of an open heart. So that's the context for courage. That's where all of these keys and transmissions are coming from that foundation, that definition of courage. Hi, Anna. I'd love to hear what's resonating, what's landing, what words, what's sticking out for you. If anything kind of triggers like a body tingle, I'd love to know what specifically is like sparking something for you. So, okay. So I want to start with the first key to courage and confidence, because confidence comes from nurturing this muscle of courage. The first key to courage I learned in a workshop when I was getting my master's for social work. We had to do a behavior change project where we read this book and we learned all of the tiny little nuances that influences somebody's ability to change a behavior pattern. And there's so many, right? There's the thoughts you have before taking the action. There's the action itself and changing the action. And then so it's A, the antecedent, what happens before the behavior, B, the behavior, and C, the consequence or the things that reinforce the behavior. And as I was doing this project, I was like, oh my goodness, there are so many variables that play into behavior change. No wonder why it's difficult for people to shift their patterns. No wonder why it's difficult for people who are addicted to comfort to step into courage. But the one thing that stood out for me amidst all of that, and I was like, that's the key. If we could just lock in on that, oh my goodness, was research showed that amongst everybody that was able to change their behavior, the people who changed all shared one thing, and that one thing was it was a belief that they were capable of changing their behavior. So I'm going to say it again. It was a belief that they were capable of changing their behavior. Why did I think this was so important? It has to do with something called the confirmation bias, which is the natural, we all do it, human tendency to find evidence for things we already believe in. And I used this, I held this workshop with middle schoolers a couple weeks ago, which was the first time I ever used it with younger children, which was great for me because I really had to simplify it and make it concise. And the example that I used is, a lot of people have fear of flying. Why is that? Well, it's because every time a plane lands safely, we don't hear about it. We never hear about the planes that land safely. All of them, hundreds and hundreds every day. We only hear about plane crashes, right? And chaos in relationship to planes. And so that conditions our brain to associate fear with flying. But we do this with ourselves, and this, again, is a very natural human tendency. We have a tendency as humans to focus on not enoughness. And so we're often remembering the times in our life where we chickened out of something, where we avoided a conversation because we were afraid, or we avoided public speaking because we were afraid, or we really wanted to go get up and dance at that party or that wedding or that thing, and we didn't because we were afraid. And we remember those moments. And every time we ruminate on those moments, we condition ourselves to believe that we're not capable of courage. And so the first key to courage is capability curls. Capability curls and the construction of an archetype called the inner cheerleader. And this is where it gets fun and completely personalized to you. So for me, I decided 2 weeks ago that I wanted to start doing cold water plunges. It's been on my heart. I finally had that deep inner knowing. I'm like, it's time. I live 3 houses down from the ocean. I literally can walk into the water in a minute. There's no reason I can't do it. Except I've been telling myself I'm not capable of doing it, right? And that was my reasoning. Oh, it's too uncomfortable. I don't have what it takes. And so then I didn't have what it took because that was a story that I was narrating. So it hit me. I started doing the cold water plunging. I followed the nudge. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And then it hit me that until I make it a more devotional practice, and this is where devotion comes in. Until I make this more of a devotional practice, I'm going to fall off the bandwagon because it's going to keep getting difficult. Like today, it's snowing, right? It's 35 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's cold. Like it's snowing. And I went in the water today for 3 minutes. And the reason I was able to do that was because I created this archetypal cheerleader. And for me, it was a father figure. It was like the quintessential baseball coach who's just so big-hearted. He just cares about what's best for you. And for me, I like characterized him. I was like, this is what he's wearing. He's got a really strong physique because he works out and he cares about his body. But he also had a fatherly energy, right? There was no sexual attraction. It was the inner father that I was cultivating. And when I went into the water, I would imagine my inner father standing on the shoreline and saying, you got this, baby girl. You can do it. You're doing amazing. Keep going. Keep going. And it gave me this inner like, oh yes, I can do that. It energized me. It gave me an aliveness that I could only conjure when I was engaging with my inner cheerleader. And so I've been using the inner father, but sometimes my inner cheerleader in the past has been a mother figure. It's been, all right, what more maternal figure do I need to call on? And how does she talk to me? What does she say in those moments where I'm feeling fear? And so this is an exercise that you can do outside of this call. Just make a note. If you're writing notes, I would suggest, writing down anything that stands out and any activities you want to take on. But writing down, what is your ideal inner cheerleader right now in regards to that thing that you're afraid of doing, whether it's dancing or public speaking or whatever it is. Such a great way to explain this. Awesome, beautiful. I'm glad it's resonating. So what do they look like? Like, go into detail. What do they look like? How do they talk to you? What kind of energy do they represent? Maybe they're more grandmotherly or grandfatherly. What's a compelling energy? What's a compelling character that you can call on, that you can work with in these moments of fear? So I use this archetype in a couple of ways. I use it when I'm doing the thing, right? Doing the cold plunge, going live. And then I also do it at the end of the day. I ritualize this, and I'm getting better at doing it consistently. I fall off the bandwagon, and I can tell when I've fallen off the bandwagon. And the bandwagon is this: at the end of the day, calling on that archetype, right? And consciously celebrating all of the things you did that day in the spirit of your life force energy. Remembering that courage is the willingness to stay present with high sensation for the sake of opening up your heart and experiencing more of your wholeness. So what did you do today in order to stay present with high sensation? Well, maybe you didn't snooze your alarm 3 times. Courageous, right? Maybe you remembered, I need to drink a bit more water today, and you kept doing that throughout the day. Maybe you noticed that you were in fear and you caught yourself and you stopped and you took 3 deep breaths and you stayed present with the fear. That's courage, right? And so at the end of the day, you want to note that. I am so proud of you for saying you were going to do your ritual and doing your ritual. I am so proud of you for feeling fear and breathing into it instead of overeating, watching Netflix, going to social media, drinking, smoking, etc. I am so proud of you for catching yourself in the midst of a Netflix binge and asking, hey, what am I avoiding? What am I afraid of? And just checking in. Courage, celebration. So capability curls, and the more you celebrate yourself, what this does is it starts to recondition your confirmation bias. So you start to see yourself as somebody who's capable of sitting in high sensation. And that's the first key. If you don't believe you're capable, you're not going to do the stretchy, edgy thing. So creating an archetype for this key, creating an archetype, it really helps if you say your celebration out loud, ideally in a mirror, if you can. Right? Sometimes on the fly, if you catch yourself and you're not in front of a mirror, it's great to be like, okay, I'm here. I'm celebrating myself for coming back, for staying present in high sensation. You're fucking amazing, right? And doing that as many times throughout the day as possible. So creating that archetype and creating some sort of ritual around self-celebration. The other thing you can do, and this is something that you can do as a one-off, you don't necessarily need to do this every day for this particular key, is create a list of all of the moments in your life where you felt fear and did the action anyways because it was in alignment with your values. So creating a running list of all of the reasons why you are a badass, why you are capable of being with discomfort. As well as, I call this, why I'm a badass list, right? But as well as anything you've been through that felt traumatic in your life that you've survived. So any trauma you've had, right? You add that to the list as evidence that you're capable of coming out on the other side. You're not broken. You've snapped back, albeit we're all healing from things, right? But often our pain points are portals to our purpose, right? So often, for example, with me, right, I had a lot of trauma as a child, but all of that trauma, if I really traced it back intentionally and I get curious, oh, how did that actually lead to where I'm at today? I wouldn't be studying or supporting women in the way that I'm doing now if I didn't have those traumatic experiences, because they launched me into this gold nugget breadcrumb trail of curiosity. Well, how can I learn how to communicate in a loving way? How can I learn how to nurture my nervous system? Because I was never taught that as a child, right? So getting curious about how your traumas have informed your gifts is also a beautiful way of shifting your confirmation bias and repatterning your associations with fear and pain. So I'm going to stop there for a moment and I'm just going to check comments. Love the definite. Resonates as a recovering perfectionist. Yes, hi, yes. Definitely being present resonates with me. Amazing. So when I held this workshop for the middle schoolers, one of the things that stood out for them is everybody's courage looks different. So for some people, coming live in this group doesn't take courage because there's no fear present. It's already like, nah, I'm good. Like, this is fine, right? And for other people, coming live in this group does take courage because there's fear present. Remembering that courage is a cocktail that involves fear. It's not fearlessness. Fearlessness isn't courage, right? Courage is the willingness to act in spite of fear. Okay, let me just check in. Okay, we're rolling. I got 2 more keys. Let me see if I can condense this. All right, so I wanted to also offer you some somatics, some ways in which you can then engage with fear. So celebration is huge. That's reconditioning your confirmation bias, the way you see yourself. But what do you do when fear is present, right? Because fear hijacks our nervous system and it can make it really difficult to function when we're feeling discomfort and fear. So fear is scariest when it sits in the dark. It's like when you wake up in the middle of the night and you see that dark looming shadow and you wonder, what the hell is that? It looks like a person, and you turn the light on and it's just the laundry that's been piling up on your chair. It's like we constantly overblow fear, right? We're constantly well, I'll speak for myself. I often catastrophize, and I'm really good at coming up with worst case scenarios, right? My imagination is great for that. We're retraining her, but she's really good. And so for me, when it comes to, this is the next key to courage, is calling fear forward out of the dark into the light. So an exercise that I like to do when I'm noticing that I'm in resistance to something is acknowledging that I'm in resistance to something, and again, doing this out loud. And the reason why it's important to do it out loud is because our brain, when we're not speaking or vibrating energy, is really good at just going off on 1,000 tangents, right? You ever read a book and all of a sudden you're like 5 years into the future thinking about something that doesn't exist, and you've read 3 pages and you're like, where did I go? You just totally checked out. The brain's really good at doing that. So for me, when I catch myself in fear, one of the first things I'll do is say, I'm feeling fear. Part of me, or I like to say a part of me is feeling fear right now. And the way I like to say a part of me is because often fear likes to hijack the room and take up a lot of space. And it can feel like fear is all there is in the room. And so when I say a part of me is feeling fear, it reminds me that, oh, just one part of me is, and also I have other parts of me that might not be feeling fear right now. Can I call on them, right? Inner cheerleader, inner guide. But the first thing I'll do is say a part of me is feeling fear. Where does humor come into this? So when I first started going live for my business, I would make really silly faces in the mirror, in the camera. Sometimes I still do it, right? You see me kind of animating myself. And as I do that, these are all, and I notice I'm like talking with my hands. This is the Italian in me. I'm just all over the place. But that's for me. It's a way, one, of pattern interrupting the fear and bringing energy to it, energizing the fear. Another way that I like to engage with fear is once I've acknowledged that fear is present, sometimes I'll sing to myself, right? Part of me is feeling fear, and I love that part of me, right? And part of me is feeling fear, and I love that part of me. So you can sing, you can say it out loud. But again, the point in saying it out loud is when we speak, we vibrate our central channel. And when we vibrate our central channel, we start to soothe the nervous system. This is the reason I started my podcast, because I process things out loud. I think we should all talk to ourselves way more than we do. It's a sign of intelligence. It also helps us de-stress. Again, energy or emotion is energy in motion, and emotions are like waves that rise in the body. And if they get to the level of the mind, they tend to, I call this mental masturbation. They just loop. And so in order to move energy, it's really important that we move the body. So when I'm saying, a part of me is feeling fear and I love that, I might also be wiggling. These are, we're going to do quick somatic stuff right now. These are stress release points on the head. So I'll press these points and I'll acknowledge out loud, part of me is feeling fear and I love that. And sometimes I'll go into the fear. Oh my God, a part of me is afraid that everybody's gonna hate me. A part of me is afraid that I'm gonna feel embarrassed and I'm unwilling to feel the sensations of embarrassment. A part of me is afraid that I'm gonna, let's do real-time stuff, it's 4:27. A part of me is afraid that I'm gonna go over my time. A part of me is afraid that people think I'm annoying. A part of me is afraid that I'm not capable of holding space for high sensation. Breathing into the body. And I love to just add on, a part of me is afraid, and I love that because that's where the courage, the heart comes in. Bringing love to the fear, acknowledging the fear, giving it a voice, giving it movement, and then speaking love into that space. For the same reason, it's powerful to have an inner cheerleader, because the part of us that feels fear is small. It's our inner child, right? We weren't born with all the fear that we carry in our bodies now. It was conditioned, it was learned in. And so the same way, for those of you with kids, that you would like, oh my gosh, you are amazing, keep going. The same way you would encourage your children, it's really important that you encourage your inner child. We still need that, right? We still need to know that it's okay to feel fear. I'm still loved in my fear. I'm still loved in my insecurity. So affirming, it's okay that you're feeling insecure, Chrissy. It's okay that you have all these uncomfortable sensations. I love you in all of that. Another powerful question to ask when you're moving the fear and engaging with it is, once you are clear what you're afraid of, asking, what do I need to hear right now? What do I need to hear right now? Dropping in. I'll do real-time stuff for you right now, right? So what do I need to hear right now? I need to hear that everybody who ever crosses paths with you gets exactly what they need from your medicine and your magic. That it is not your job to micromanage how people process your transmissions and your self-expression. You're here because you were nudged in, and that means that you're here for purpose. And anytime you stay present with high sensation and model courage, you raise the life force of the universe. And this is where devotion comes in. Okay, final key. Wrapping it up. Devotion comes in here. So for those of you who have not ever read Power versus Force by David Hawkins, Amazing book, a little heady, but if you can get past all the big words, it's great. Courage as a frequency is the point at which in the body your emotions, so when we feel shame and guilt and anger and all of those denser emotions, physically we get weak. When we feel peace and joy and acceptance, physically our muscles get strong. And this is, I do kinesiology muscle testing. So you can actually test this in the body. And courage is the frequency, the exact moment that your muscles will shift from weakness to strength in the body. And once you are energetically in a state of strength, because you've brought acceptance to the fear, you've brought a willingness to take action, you've connected to your bigger why. Once you've created that courage cocktail, you're now emanating a power frequency versus a force frequency. You're emanating life-giving energy versus life-sucking energy. At a quantum level, when you start doing that, you counteract thousands of other people in the world who are vibrating below the level of courage. And I love this because often when we're practicing courage and we're working on self-celebration in the beginning, it can feel like it's not enough. And I want you to know that it is enough. That every time you lean into courage, you are shifting the balance of consciousness at a quantum level in the world. It's amazing. So, devotion. If we're in resistance to doing things that we think we want to do, it's often because we believe we can't do them. We are not acknowledging our fear and bringing love to it. And we're not connected to our why. We're not connected to the bigger picture. The thing outside of us that's pulling us forward, right? Pain pushes and vision and purpose pulls. So what is that thing? For me, when it came down to doing my cold water plunges, when I turned it into a devotion and I called on my inner father, I devoted myself to one of my core values, which is vitality, which is that sense of like energy and aliveness. And that's really important to me because I know that when I'm in contact with that frequency, when I'm refining my vessel, my channel, I'm more generous, I'm more creative, I'm more open-hearted, I'm more connected to people. Like, I feel like I'm living in alignment with my higher self, with my bigger self, right? The capital S self. And it's bigger than me, right? I'm tapping into my sacred thread in the tapestry. And so when it comes to doing that thing that, as I invited you in the beginning to reflect on, where in your life are you not leaning in? Start getting curious about, why is it important for you to lean in? Is it really important? Because if it is, start to nurture that. Start to journal on, what am I devoted to? What is bigger than discomfort in my life? Yeah, really important thing to marinate on. I was chatting with a girlfriend today who came on my podcast, and she said something really profound that I'm still like chewing on, which is, we were talking about devotion, and she said, my loyalty is to the song, not the audience. And so what is that sacred song that wants to move through you to fuel your sense of aliveness and courage and connection? What is that sacred song that's bigger than the story of, oh, I'm not capable. Oh, rejection. I'm not saying it's not going to be painful, right? Like, courage brings up high sensation. Acting in courage doesn't always lead to the outcome you want. Which is why I always come back to the act of courage itself, the willingness to keep your heart open to high sensation, is the point. It's not for the outcome. It's not for the clients. It's not for the connection with other people. It's for refining your ability, again, to embrace more of your wholeness, to love yourself in high sensation, to love those high sensations. and to offset, right? To start to shift the quantum vibration universally. I'm gonna drop in and read comments real quick. Vitality is infectious. Yes, 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 yes. Gosh, I wasn't going to cover inner child in my life, but I did, and it's the same. Yes! Yeah, so important and powerful. Release points and releasing the fear. Yeah. So I'm feeling fear and I love it. Right? Don't take yourself so spiritually. Don't take yourself so seriously. We're all human. We all feel fear. We all feel fear of rejection, fear of all sorts of things. It's natural. I'm going to go swipe on my computer instead of on the phone. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up, but I just want to make sure that I've touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. I did. Cool. The one thing I did want to mention in terms of shifting your nervous system as well is power posing. There's another TED Talk for you to check out if you haven't seen it already. But power posing, like standing in the Superman pose or the Wonder Woman pose, this also settles the nervous system. So holding it for 2 minutes with the chest, again, the heart open, chest, heart forward, right? Chin up, tailbone tucked, and holding that. And so courage is a nuanced muscle to work, right? We got to work at the mind, the level of the mind and the story, the belief. We got to work at the level of the nervous system, right? Which is, people will often say, oh, it's a mindset thing. We can, you'll go as far as your stories, but often you can't do mindset work unless you're also doing nervous system, somatic work, because the body is really powerful. And if the body feels like you're dying, you can tell yourself you're not, but all of you know, right? Sometimes our thoughts don't have as much power as we think they do in the moment of fear. So learning how to nurture and settle the nervous system is super important. So body, thoughts, energetics, humor, spirit, devotion, right? So hitting all of those points. Okay. I feel complete on that. And I'll share my offer. And thank you for providing the opportunity for that as well, Tanya. My website is in the description for this video, as well as my IG, and you can follow me on Facebook. If you add me, just message me. I get a lot of random requests. I like to know where people are coming from. Just say, hey, saw you in Manifestation Babes, wanted to connect. Great, awesome. I also just recently, very excited for this, opened up a membership called VOYAGERS, and it's a gym membership for the nervous system, essentially, and it's a place where we come alive with breath and bravery. So we do transformational live breathwork ceremonies every month, 2 to 3. This month we're doing 3. If you've never done transformational breathwork, you must try it at least once. It might not be for you, but it might completely change your life. It did for me. Breathwork is a way of detoxing the body from fear and stagnation. It's great physically. It's great emotionally. One of the women, she watched one of the replays and she said, I feel so empowered. Like, even though you were guiding me, I was like, I'm doing this for me. And that's the cool thing with breathwork. You can reach shamanic states of consciousness without needing to do any plant medicine. It's completely, you're sober, but you're feeling everything. So it's wonderful for practicing courage and leaning into high sensation. Highly recommend. So that is called VOYAGERS. You get the access to the breathwork ceremonies. And then I also jump in there and I give a lot of private content that I would give with my one-to-one clients or my group clients. So primarily the things that I cover are energy medicine, how to navigate and master your energy and your nervous system. I go deeper on all of these keys to courage. There's a lot more that I'm not covering today because time. And so courage, energy medicine, embodiment. I do a lot of somatic work, a lot of inner child archetype work, boundaries and values work. So that's the kind of content that you'd get if you come into the Voyagers membership. And I will drop the link for that below. It's in my website. If you want to go check it out, you can do that now, but I'll just make it easy access. It's $25 a month. It's worth over $100. You can stay for as little or as long as you want. So if you want to try it on for a month and see if you like it and then unsubscribe, that's totally fine. So if you're feeling nudged in, you want to try the breath workout, we've got a ceremony Sunday on the day after the full moon, a ceremony on the new moon, and then a ceremony on the full moon in November. So we're going in this month. And if you just want to reach out and ask me any questions about this, I also have I have the longer version of this workshop. It's called Keys to Courage. It's not on my website. It's something you need to message me for. It's $33. I can send you the link that way. Yeah, I think that's it. I'd love to know in the comments, what's one thing you're taking away? What stood out for you the most? I'm gonna read your comments before I close. Yeah, so what's one thing that you're gonna take away? One little nugget. Yep, I do that too. Having kids inspires many musical moments. Yes. A part of me is feeling fear. Awesome. Glad that resonated. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Tanya, for this opportunity and this group. These beautiful, beautiful ladies. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here sharing the transmission with all of you. I trust, again, that if you're here, you've gotten exactly what you need from this space. I look forward to continue connecting to all of you. Until next time, play on.